everybody. Welcome to Webinar Wednesday. My name is Martijn Lofvers. I'm the Chief Trendwatcher of Supply Chain Media, also the Editor-in-Chief of Supply Chain Movement, quarterly magazine in Europe, but also an online website, newsletter, bi-weekly, with readers all over the world. And I'm also the architect of the IT Super Map. We will discuss it later. In the upcoming 60 minutes, we have a great story. We will discuss the Heineken journey of supply chain design and optimization. And it's great to have a lot of listeners listening in live and probably later on in recording. So with me, I have three experts. So I will introduce them to you. So on left, that's me without glasses. And next to me is Jasper Blaas. Jasper, welcome.
Thank you, Martijn. Thanks for having us today. Yes, my name is Jasper. I'm working at the HEINEKEN Company and I'm responsible for the planning capability. I have been with Heineken for my whole career, about 18 years, and most of that time in one form or another in the planning area.
Okay, thanks. And next to Jasper, we have Arjen van Diepen. Welcome. Maybe you can introduce yourself briefly.
Yeah, thanks, Martijn. My name is Arjen van Diepen. I work as head of global strategic planning. I've been with Heineken for 12 years in several roles, mostly planning, some project management roles, and since 5 years in the center where I worked in the network design team that we call now strategic planning, and I'm managing that team since about a year and a half. So pleased to be here.
Okay, thanks. And last but not least, Kees Ramselaar. Maybe Kees, you can introduce yourself briefly.
Absolutely. So indeed, my name is Kees Ramselaar. I've been with the company for about 8 years. And from my role in customer success, I have the privilege of working with companies such as Heineken. And that's really what I like to do best. Work with customers, look at their use cases and see how they can utilize our technology in the broadest sense.
All right, thanks. And we will discuss the Heineken journey extensively. So a few things before we start going into the deep dive. So this webinar will be recorded and it will be made available on YouTube. And the PDF will also be made available afterwards within 48 hours. The audience is on mute, but feel free to ask questions. And there are two ways to do that. So either use the chat functionality. Everybody can watch and track down and respond to that. So that's fine. But I prefer that if you have questions to the three experts, please use the Q&A functionality on the right-hand side. You see these small text bubbles, and I can track these questions. If these questions are in line of the conversation we are having, I will ask these questions right away. Or if not, I will reserve the questions for later on. We have a Q&A at the end. But afterwards, there's also an extra 30 minutes. So we have an extra 30 minutes beyond the hour. So if you have some more questions, if you want to sit down with the Heineken experts, either on technical planning or strategic planning, you can sit down with them and have a direct conversation. So that's afterwards. So as of now, I will put off my camera so you can enlarge your screen and have a better view on the slides. All right. So to introduce AIMMS briefly, so I'm the architect of the IT Supply Map. You probably have seen it before. What I show you here, we created an overview, a visualization of all the established software vendors on supply chain in Europe, and there are different supply lines: ERP, WMS, TMS, SNOP, network design, you name it. And basically, there's a representation of all the established vendors. And we are updating this subway station right now, and will be made available at the end of Q2. Here you see AIMMS, and Kees will highlight it even further. But AIMMS has a background in network design, and later on they also created other applications. So this is how we position AIMMS as a well-respected vendor. And they're also positioned in a Gartner quadrant, so in that respect they're also well established. But maybe Kees, you can explain what is the reason why, what is the purpose of AIMMS in the overall sense.
Yeah, absolutely, Martijn. Thank you. Just also as a bit of a technical framework behind the Heineken story, AIMMS is really about figuring out your best next action at any given point in time or circumstance. Our capabilities are deeply rooted in applied mathematics or operations research, if you would. And at the core, we have a low-code modeling and deployment platform that provides freedom of scope to support complex decision-making. Now, what does that mean, complex decision-making? Is that it can be used to create scenarios and optimize at any time you need to make a decision on many different variables simultaneously. So, for instance, how much, how frequent, how fast, how large, and from and to which location. But also where you balance between multiple and sometimes even competing objectives. I think a traditional trade-off between cost and service levels alone is something that anyone in this call is aware of. But doing that, you also need to stay within the boundaries of many different constraints. So think of production, distribution capacities, capabilities, available routes, things like shelf life, governmental regulations, etc. So you can imagine that things get complicated easily and fast. And we believe mathematical optimization is the key.
Okay, and maybe you can explain a bit further, about your company. Well, some more details about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've been around for a while. We have a 35 years legacy and track record empowering people in multinational companies just to support our operation and supply chain decisions. And for quite a while already, we are considered a global standard for optimization modeling within the corporate world, the industry, but also advisory businesses. And we have our roots in the academic world, and we work with quite a few academic institutions across the globe still. By now, our global customer base are running more than 2,000 AIMMS-based applications. And on average, every minute, an optimization job is initiated on the AIMMS cloud platform. I think worth mentioning is that what I personally like most about AIMMS is that everyone has a relentless focus on customer success, just driven by the passion for supply chain and mathematical optimization.
Yeah, okay. And I see in a lot of different kind of markets, all kind of supply chain related markets with physical goods, and also in energy areas, you have applied this kind of applications for your customers.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and maybe talking about an application, maybe you can explain two different ways of providing solutions to your market.
So first and foremost, AIMMS is predominantly used within the context of supply chain. Mm-hmm. And this is done either using our SC Navigator solution, which is represented on the left-hand side with the green color. And this is a standard solution that provides supply chain design and planning capabilities that are listed in detail on the left-hand green side of the wheel. So this really provides out-of-the-box adequate coverage for topics such as network design, center of gravity, sustainability, inventory, and also tactical planning. So once again, this is readily available, and it usually takes us less than 3 months to onboard a new customer with a standard solution. Then on the right-hand side, the blue side of the wheel, that's what represents the art of the possible when it comes to quickly building and deploying a fit-for-purpose solution. So a fit-for-purpose, tailored, build your own, may raise concerns, that people get wild and carried away. But what we see companies do, and Heineken is one of them, is that they use it in case they have very specific requirements that cannot be met by generally available off-the-shelf solutions. Or in case they want to stay away from the process of customizing a standard solution, which is generally often loaded with functionalities, features, which you don't end up using anyway. So, and so far, Heineken has predominantly made use of the flexible modeling and deployment capabilities, which we see on the right-hand side of the wheel.
Okay, yeah, that's quite interesting to see. Maybe you can tell a bit briefly about the kind of customers you are servicing.
Yeah. So what you see here is a small cross-section of companies that use AIMMS to support their complex decision-making. So as you probably will notice is that the vast majority of customers operate a physical supply chain and deal with similar challenges despite the different verticals they find themselves in. So you see food and beverage, you see the chemicals industry, also transportation companies, energy companies, high-tech companies. and they have a lot of supply chain challenges in common. So many of them are using the navigator, and also a very large portion uses the modeling environment.
Okay.
Now,
Can you tell me how much percentage wise is using the platform, and how much is using the standard navigator application?
yeah, so I think by now at least 25% is using the standard solution, but that also has to do with the fact that we didn't start that until 6 years ago. And basically the reason, and Heineken is one of them, we saw companies using the modeling environment to do network design studies. And we saw many different customers across the globe jumping the same hoops, reinventing the wheel. So we felt we were missing out on learning of all these independent projects, and we felt we could provide more value, delivering also the standard solution to the market.
Okay, clear. All right. So I have this representation of a planning tower. So that's evolving all through the years. So basically, what this visualization says is, you have different levels in your building of planning. So sales orders are entering the building, and then they go into their ERP system, and you have your S&E layer. That could be WMS, TMS, MES, etc. And then later on the third floor, you have your sales and operations planning. And on a higher level, you have your IBP planning. Some companies have it combined, and some have it in different layers. And we'll also discuss it briefly with Heineken. And then on the top layer, you have your end-to-end planning and overview. You are more aware of what's happening in the market, what's happening on the supply side. And as we will see later on with the Heineken case, it's on a tactical and a strategic level. So basically, partly it's in parallel of SNOP and IBP, and on some extent it's all happening on the top level of this environment. And what I've seen with Heineken, they are very advanced in the sense that they have a better feeling of how to do end-to-end planning. So a lot of companies want a control tower or command center, and we'll discuss later how Heineken is dealing with all this.
Yeah,
all right.
And if I may add to that, Martijn, so I think there's a little celebration necessary, because from my records it shows that Heineken has been using AIMMS since 2004. So they're relatively mature in the use of AIMMS also. And I'm truly excited and grateful that Jasper and Arjen are willing to share their experiences. And definitely hope that it will inspire some of the thinking among the broader supply chain community. So.
All right. Yeah, thanks. So Arjen, maybe you can explain Heineken. It's a well-known brand, but maybe you can explain it a bit further, the complexity, etc.
At a glance, we are the second brewer globally after AB InBev, but the first brewer in Europe, and present in more than 190 countries, having more than 160 breweries. So I think we can say a truly global presence that we have. A total beer volume of 242 million hectoliters. That's the industry measure of volume. And besides the well-known flagship brand Heineken and some other international brands, we also have many local brands, total of 350 brands in our portfolio. We operate with around 90,000 direct employees. So that means we would just fit into Wembley Stadium, basically. But we never tried that, of course, but to give a sense of how big the company is. In countries, we operate in what we call operating companies that are opcos, countries with majority-owned structure, relative autonomous opcos generally, but also managed from the center, like Jasper and I will explain in a bit. And we also have joint ventures and countries where we operate with associates. China and Germany are, for example, countries where we do that with CRB and Paulaner. And then there's countries where we just export. So we do have our brands present, but we export to and through third-party distributors. And last, there are some licensed countries where we have partners that brew our brands, but under a license. The map shows all the distinctions.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
Russia is gray. I see.
Exactly. Yeah, we left the country. That's been all over the news as well. Our brands are not present anymore there. No.
All right, and this visualization shows in a quite interesting way that you have different kind of supply chains if you look at how you go to the market.
Correct. Yeah, that's correct. There's quite a range of supply chain. You can imagine it's quite different to operate or to deliver beer to customers around a brewery in Congo or having to export beer, what we do a lot, from the Netherlands to for example, the US, but also to Asia, which is long distance and requires careful planning, shipping, and making sure that the route to market is ensured. And that's a wide range of different supply chains, and which are managed all in a very particular and tailored way.
Yeah, and we'll discuss it later how to deal with that. So maybe you can talk about a bit further, business-wise, what the purpose is of the Heineken Company.
Yeah, a bit into our strategy. This is our company strategy on the next page. We brew the joy of true togetherness to inspire a better world. That's our purpose. Yeah, basically Heineken is all about connecting people, and we do that by shaping the future of beer and beyond to win the hearts of consumers. This is supported by several pillars that basically aim to expand our impact on this world. We have the expansion and acquisition part. So Heineken has over years acquired a lot of other companies. That also leads to a lot of scattered systems. Jasper will talk about it, how we manage that to integrate. And then there's, of course, beer, led by Heineken. We want to premiumize the market. Heineken is still growing worldwide and double-digit even. So that is certainly the flagship brand that we continue to lead the category there. Then we also have beyond beer, well-known, the 0% that we have in our portfolio. Almost all our brands serve now a choice, which is really important also, I believe, personally. And we expand beyond beer. So not just beer, but also ciders and other fermented drinks. This is an area that we want to explore and expand into. Digital, very well anchored in our strategy, and also where supply chain planning contributes a lot. So we are here to build tools and capabilities to make sure we become the best connected brewer and a truly networked organization as well. Last but not least, full potential for people. Heineken's a people-first company, and I believe you can really feel that when you work with us, and we really put the safety and well-being of employees and everyone around them at the highest priority. So that's for sure a big part of what we do. Yeah.
And finally, how to win. I think, and we'll discuss it later, but there is also a kind of mentality culture of, to perform, not only on a commercial level, on a commercial side, but also on the supply chain side. Do you agree?
Yeah, no, that's correct. How to win. So I think it starts a lot with people. So getting talented people in, and then make sure that you are doing things smarter, better, faster, more agile than competition, and make sure you have the winning edge. And I think this mindset is very present around Heineken. People are also proud of the company. We want to bring the company further. And this is for sure important, because the beer market around the world is really competitive. We have craft brewers, we have big competition. It's a market that attracts a lot of competitors. So we are there to win it.
So, as I understand it, business-wise, when I look at the map of the world, you have a lot of local breweries, local markets. So in one sense, it's very decentralized. On the other hand, you have centralized capabilities and supply chain planning environment. So you combine both, I would say.
Yeah.
Am I correct?
Correct. You could call it a hybrid approach, where we say we have to be close to our consumer, close to where we sell the beer and understand the needs of our consumers. While at the same time, we should leverage our skill, which means harmonizing, standardizing, and sometimes centralizing. And I think the planning discipline is an example where we see a lot of benefit in centralizing and harmonizing the way of working. Jasper will explain a bit on how we do that. But we have been also centralizing the function, leveraging also the technology that is now available, that we can actually do that and create a truly global view of what we do, how we do it, and how we plan our product. Yeah.
Okay. So maybe Jasper, you can talk about the technology. What is the setup?
Yes. I think it's always good when we are talking about the Heineken Company to explain a little bit of the technological background. So we are in a process of transformation. As Arjen explained, we have a large footprint, and we are trying to be, on the one hand, local, and on the other hand, reap the benefits of being a global company. Part of that, always wanting to be local, led to the fact that we still have 45 different ERP systems in the company. And our recent technology direction is very much on ensuring that we are moving over time to one core ERP, and that core ERP is meant to be as lean as possible. And it's fully based on the idea that the ERP should only orchestrate supply chain and finance. But around that ERP, we are building business platforms, and business platforms are the building blocks where most of the functional activities happen. And we have been doing that in planning for quite a while with building with building a template. We have 2 suppliers for our planning function, and we roll out OpCo by OpCo, ERP system by ERP system, our planning tools. But what is truly interesting, and also that's very much for us where AIMMS comes around, is the digital product category of solutions. So in principle, we are saying business platforms are platforms that we can buy off the shelf and implement with relative ease. I think everybody who have done big planning implementations knows that those platforms don't really exist like that. But still, the idea is buy something that exists and implement. And digital products is the area where we experiment more, but also where we believe we can differentiate and where we can have a competitive advantage by building something that is not available off the shelf, and thus having more speed and more efficiency, and I think also more value in some cases.
So maybe this visualization represents in a nice way what Gartner has also provided. I think 10 years ago, you have a system of record, that's your ERP environment, system of differentiation, that's your planning environment, SNOP, etc., and the system of innovation, and that's where you have the flexibility to apply functionality quite quickly. And that's
exactly. Yeah.
And when I look at this overview, one of the main questions I have with the complexity of all kind of systems is you have your ERP system, a lot of ERP systems. Do you have a data lake where you export your data from your ERP system in, and then to extract the data for the AIMMS applications?
Yes. So basically, that's also in the progress of changing at the moment. We are currently still using basically a HANA layer to export data and to collate data from all our different ERP systems. But in the future, we're moving to Azure-based integration, where we are basically replicating tables from the core ERP system and exposing them for our planning tools. Yeah. We're also making a big change there because we want to move to a structure where we determine the data model, and on the side of the vendor, so on the side of the different platforms and digital products, we do the conversion that is needed to load data into the specific data models of the tools. Yeah.
Okay. Let's dig a bit deeper in supply chain planning. I think maybe the core part of it is the capabilities. Can you explain how you deal with the capabilities and building it up?
Yeah, so we have for the past 6 or 7 years been very busy by what I was saying earlier, defining templates for our local demand and local supply planning solutions and rolling them out across the globe. And that basically is giving us the basis that we need, because basically if you look at the previous picture, you need that ring around the core in order to be able to then build digital products. And that need to build digital products is growing, or at least the need to add functionality is growing because of two main developments. One being there is a large pressure indeed on centralization and ideas of doing part of our activities on a regional level, whereas our tools are rolled out on a local OpCo level. And the other is that there's just value pockets that we think we are not always capturing with our digital platforms that we can break off in terms of optimization, break off and work on in separate tools. And that's, I think, also a good bridge to the tools that we are discussing today on the AIMMS platform, because they both, all the tools all relate to either capturing value that we were not capturing before, or to bringing decisions and bringing optimization to a higher level geographically.
If you look at the lower right corner of this slide with the percentages, I'm curious. So can you explain? So what do you mean with the fit for platforms in that sense?
Yeah, so fit is what we call our planning templates that we use. So basically, what we have been doing is going country by country and implementing basic and more advanced planning tools according to a certain standard. And the fact that we, after we deploy it, of course, we are now in a kind of, now that we are close to this 99% of all the volumes, all the volume that Heineken produces is, or almost all the volume is flowing and planned by one of our standardized tools. That means that we can start building on top of that, right? We can expand that and we can use that data in smarter ways.
So now you can explore the value pockets and have a better optimization in that sense.
Yes. Yeah.
All right. Maybe we have different kind of layers and different kind of applications for the AIMMS platform. Maybe you can explain the first one. That's SAM. So maybe you can explain what its use.
Yes. So one of the topics that always was a source for debate is how do we do tactical material requirements planning? So how do we make sure that we are planning the right productions at our suppliers, but also sending the right forecasts, doing the right splits between suppliers in case we have a multi-sourcing active. And we never found really the right way to do that, either in the cores or in the ERP systems or in the planning platforms I was discussing earlier. So at some point, and this is, I think, also is a good example of why AIMMS is strong in this. It was actually a trainee that invented a way to do material planning where instead of taking the bill of materials as an input, it was using marketing project information as an input and keeping the bill of materials flexible. And what does it mean? It means that we can optimize when do we need to change which label or which carton box on which finished goods, depending on a lot of factors, depending on what the suppliers have on stock, when the artworks are available, what procurement wants us to do, what marketing wants us to do, and what, of course, is then the lowest cost changeover moment. We had that already in one operating company for a while, and 3 years ago we decided this is a product that we want to apply in more markets, and we started building basically the global solution variant of this, which could be plugged in on top of our planning tools on the one hand and on top of SAP on the other hand.
So basically, Heineken is a marketing-driven company. I would say you have a lot of brand, and you are, you have James Bond as a tie-in, etc. I can imagine that the marketing has all kind of new promotions, and and basically what you're saying, you try to plan it in the most efficient way, so it's not so hard-coded like MRP normally is.
Exactly. So what we do is basically we collect all stock and all production plan information from our suppliers on a weekly basis, We basically plot that in a timeline, but we also collect in a standardized way from our marketing teams all the changes that they want to do. And we also codify that in a way, because sometimes you have changes that are complex in the sense that it's okay if James Bond is on the label before that it is on the box, but we don't want that James Bond is only on the box but has not appeared on the label yet, because that could disappoint customers that buy the box. So these kind of things are complex, and you can make them as complex as you want. But we have now 10 operating companies live on this platform, and that means that in this moment, if I open the database, there's 1,500 ongoing design changes in total happening. Yeah.
And you know, I can imagine, and as a brewery, you have also empty bottles to plan, and I can imagine you have different kind of sources. How do you deal with this kind of stuff with empty bottles and the planning of it?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that's also one of the things that we really noticed where this kind of tooling adds value, because as soon as we started with this, we started with, okay, how do we optimize the changeovers? But then the more you talk to planners, and we develop this in a very agile way, but the more you talk to planners and to users, you get, we also spend 1.5 days a week on optimizing our inbound bottle supply. And you go, why do you take 1.5 days? Yeah, because we have 4 different suppliers for the same bottle. We have all kinds of questions from procurement, because procurement says at the beginning of the year, let's do a 50-50 split or whatever, but in reality, you know when the suppliers are actually producing your bottle, when they are on a Flint glass campaign, etc. You know far more than that, and you need to take all of that into account. So on the short term, you want to be more reactive to the actual stocks and production of the suppliers, and in the long term, you want to compensate the forecast again in order to get closer to the goals that procurement set based on the contracts that they closed. So these kind of things, in the end, we just developed separate heuristic/solving for that in order to save even more time from planners. Because, of course, what now happens without tooling like this is it's all in Excel, and it's all everything you do this week, and next week 3 things changed in your production plan, and you can start over again. So we are saving massive amounts of time. And the other, maybe to add one more thing here, the other thing that we have been discussing is this tool came at the right time, because at this time there was also a big push from Europe region to see, okay, what activities can we do on a European level? And of course, most of our suppliers are also international companies that before we had this tool were communicating to maybe 10 different people in 10 different operating companies that work in 10 different ERP systems. Well, that last part is still the same, but the actual planning can now happen centrally by one person that's talking to one supplier or a group of suppliers. And we just have the whole overview of what our operating companies need. Yeah.
So you just discussed it on region. Maybe you can explain a bit more about how to do above OpCo planning.
Yes. So okay, that's maybe that ties in closely. So this was material planning, but 2.5, 3 years ago, as part of the same initiative in Region Europe, there was a big question: how can we get more out of our supply chain? And there was urgency in that, because Region Europe had a big program which also affects the supply chain network setup. But by affecting the supply chain network setup, that led to, for example, a closure of a brewery somewhere. Of course, the flows and the interaction between our operating companies increases, because it's not longer so simple that you can say for the whole year, if Italy runs out of canning capacity, France can support Italy. No, it needs to be more dynamic. There is more flows in place, and you want to make use of the capacity in the network in the best way. So to enable these changes in the network design, and Arjen will elaborate a bit more on network design later on, but to enable those kind of bold choices and changes in network design, we needed, and the European region needed, a tool to help them support, first of all, the visibility of all these flows and all the capabilities, and knowing how much capacity we have left on each packaging line and in each brew house, but also the optimization of that. So that's where we started with the Hubble project.
So I can imagine that demand patterns are shifting across a region like this, like Europe. So in that sense, you can follow it and optimize, above OPCO for this region of this demand flows shifting.
Yeah. So we are loading basically. So as I explained, we have two of our standardized tools that we rolled out to the opcos. This is this 98%, which still means there are some operating companies that are on legacy systems for their local planning. But basically, we are loading from the local planning, either if that's standardized or not. We're loading all the data and we are recoding that to a unified data model that can plot the same kind of information independent of the local tooling. So we can see, or the European supply planners can easily see how much capacity I have left, and it's all based on a monthly drumbeat. So in the monthly drumbeat, we have a new demand planning cycle in the or new S&OP cycle in the OPCO, and we basically plug in once a month and see what the status is. Yeah.
So I can imagine if you are replanning on a central level across Europe, that you might have get into discussions about cost, because some OPCO, say Italy, for example, has some budget and etc., some plans, and now you're shifting. How do you deal with this kind of discussions of shifting capacity or and flows across an OPCO across Europe?
Yeah. I think what is key here is that the organization needs to move first, in the sense that this kind of optimization you can do, but you need to have a senior organization behind this. So basically, when Europe asked us to implement the tool, it is of course not only the tool, but it is a whole process and setup around it that enables the region to basically act on the results that come out of a planning like that. So it includes a regional S&OP cycle, it includes senior management buy-in support for these decisions. Because indeed, what happens is that basically responsibility is moving away from the local team to a more regional team, and there needs to be trust in both ways that we are doing the right thing for the total company in the end.
Yeah. And I can imagine, you have to aggregate data on a certain level. So what do you leave out? And what do you include for this kind of optimization?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So what we do compared to the local tools that remain in place and that are more precise than these tools is that we deal in a different way with capacities in our brew house and capacities in our tank park. We see it more as a throughput resource than as a actual fermentation vessels or tanks. That's one way to make optimization a lot faster. The other one is that here we don't deal with lot sizing and with complex lot size algorithms that we do need in our local tool, because often in breweries you have half process and half batch, or you have half flow and half batch processes that make planning quite complex. But we skipped through all of that. So we only want to see high level capacities. It is also not that we integrate anything back from this layer back into the local planning tools. It's really meant to define projects and bigger changes in the network.
Okay. All right. So no scheduling in that area. All right. And maybe, you mentioned already with your S&OP cycle. So can you explain a bit more how you manage a regional S&OP?
Yeah, so similar to regional supply planning, the European region also flagged that they need a better way to manage the regional S&OP. And similar to supply planning as well, AIMMS together with Ortec, which is an implementation partner, won the bid to make this happen. And basically, the functionality that we were looking for is relatively simple, but again, is complex when it comes to the details. So what we basically wanted to happen is that we can roll up all the demand plans from all our operating companies relatively simply. And that aside from the roll-up of the demand plans, we can also manage the cadence and the drumbeat and the data submissions that are being followed. So on the left hand, you see if you have good eyes, you see a lot of dots. On the lines are the opcos, and on the columns are the data submissions that we need to run the S&OP process. That was the basics, but then the more complex topics are around scenario definition. So one of the gaps that we have always had in our discussions on regional level, but in any discussion is okay. We have the S&OP plan, but what are the upsides and the downsides, or the risks and opportunities? So we also introduced a process where indeed this basically ties in to the local S&OP cycle. Once the local S&OP cycle is finished, we expect a demand plan to go into the regional S&OP cycle. But we don't only expect the demand plan, we also expect clearly defined risks and opportunities that can be seen on top of that demand plan. And the way that these tools interact, so the previous Hubble and this Spotlight, is that the region then can select, for example, okay, if I see all these risks and ops, let's check in our supply chain if we are set up for this combinations of opportunities, or for this combination of risks. Are we set up, and if they all happen, what kind of additional capabilities or flows should we enable in the network in order to make that work? So which opportunity costs should we already take in order to prepare for upside scenarios? So that's the main reason why we needed this tool. Yeah.
So if you look in the middle, I counted correctly, you see 12 months, and basically you can have your financial gap analysis, etc. How far are we off, and what is it what we should do to close the gap, etc. That's the visualization part in the middle.
Yeah, I think that's something that we are not so mature in yet, but we just see that having a tool like this triggers a lot of good discussion. We have a ROFO process within our company, and we have an S&OP process, and so far it has been there have been all kinds of ideas of how they should be aligned. Should it be the same volumes? Should the one be input for the other? We have had all the flavors, and that confused people quite a bit. So what we are doing now is defining how these two processes should really work together. And ideally, again, the key is in these risks and opportunities. So what we want in the end is a process where you have one volume planning process, but it's still allowed to have two outcomes. One that is more the financial driven ROFO process, rolling forecast, and the other is more the supply chain driven S&OP. But because you define it all in one process, you need to be able to display a waterfall chart that shows exactly what is the difference between your two numbers and why. That is where we want to go for now.
Yeah. And I can imagine, you didn't find it as an off-the-shelf environment as a product. So that's probably the reason why you designed it yourself together with Ortec, I understand.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and there was a lot of time pressure on this. So as I mentioned, there was a big program behind this that would affect the network in Europe and make that network more interdependable. So we needed to be fast. We needed to have a new tool, both for supply as well for S&OP in place, in order to assure that the people that need to manage that network can also actually manage it. Speed was at the essence as well. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. So Arjen, maybe you can elaborate a bit more about how you use this kind of tools on a strategic planning level.
Yeah, this page shows how we use AIMMS for a variety of strategic planning use cases, and we built tailored applications. We've done it ourselves on the AIMMS platform to basically tackle the business questions behind the use cases. On the top left, you see a classic one, the greenfield analysis. This is what we do, and my team does when an OpCo or a certain part of the global network, we lack capacity and we believe that we should invest. This can be also a brownfield. In this case, it was a greenfield in Mexico. I'll be explaining a bit more on the specific case in a later page. And then we use AIMMS, or the tool we have built on top of that, to optimize the location, the configuration, the capacity, the capabilities of that site, and optimize the network to make sure that we produce the right products for the right customers in the right breweries. And that's something we've done a lot. Heineken has been a growth company, and we've been building several breweries over the past years as well. Then distribution footprint analysis or optimization is typically a question: where do I put my distribution centers, warehouses in the country to best serve the customer? So what is the optimum number of warehouses, but also the location of warehouses, which should maybe be closed, where should I possibly open? You see the example of France, where we have a extensive secondary distribution network as well, to be really close to our customers. And Vietnam, which is a bit atypical country, very stretched with high density population areas, but also sparsely populated. And there, you need to analyze the full network to be able to say, okay, where do we need to be with our DCs?
I have a question about this functionality. So how often do you redesign, or how often do you run your system to check if your network is optimal?
Yeah, that's a good question, Martijn, because we are increasing the frequency as well. I think typically we did this once every 3 to 5 years, depending on the country, where we would run an analysis again. Okay, are we still doing the right thing? What has changed, and should we redesign the network still? We want to increase that frequency because we see more volatility in the market, more opportunity as well, to be able to run this potentially on a quarterly basis, where you maybe not look always on closing locations or opening new ones every quarter, but to look at the customer allocation, for example, like who takes which products from which warehouse and brewery, and should we redefine that? So this is something we look into accelerating or increasing the frequency of the analysis.
Okay.
Then inbound supply optimization works a bit of the same. We have this is the example of Europe, where we have quite an integrated network of suppliers to breweries, and we optimize the allocation, but also the procurement strategy, looking where to develop new suppliers and which supplier should provide which materials to which brewery, depending on supply capacities, brewery demand, as well as prices, both of the product, the material, as the transportation. And that's, AIMMS is a very powerful platform to analyze and to visualize as well.
I have a question about it. I can imagine that you have to collaborate closely with your procurement function, because you have your contracts, etc. But sometimes you have to shift with suppliers. So I can imagine that you have to collaborate closely to say, okay, what is the best way, and maybe some other areas should be a better sourcing area, and procurement should be aware also from a supply chain perspective.
Correct. Yeah. So this is really a team effort. We have the benefit, I think, that procurement discipline is also globally organized. So we manage all our procurement globally and centrally, and we team up with the global procurement team to make sure we make the right choices. And sometimes that means discussion on where we take the challenger role of challenging on the cost side, while we also need to respect the relation side, or the agreements that have been put in place, or the things like quantities that have been put into rebate type of structures.
Okay,
so this is a team effort, and we both work for the same goal in the end, and that helps in finding the best solution.
And the final part.
In the base, you see what we call the brewery capacity model, especially the greenfield analysis, but basically any production-related network analysis requires insight in the assets, in the capacity, in the demand as well, which gives then again the utilization. And we keep all that information also in an AIMMS tool that we developed to keep a global view on all the assets and their their performance, their utilization, what they can do, the capabilities, the capacities, and that helps us in ramping up quickly certain analysis and working closely with opcos to understand their supply chains. So it's a tool that serves many purposes. Yeah.
So here you have a more detailed view on that. So my question here is, a lot of the challenges nowadays is the allocation of your inventory centrally, more close to the market. So multi-echelon planning is an often a headache, and you have a lot of cash stuck into your inventory. So is it also addressing that side of it, and how do you use that? How do you make sure that you have your inventory at the right level and the right location?
Yeah, correct. It's probably most related to the distribution footprint analysis, where we look at where we put our DCs. Is that close to the customer, or is that more close to our breweries, for example? That depends on the configuration of the country, but also on the behavior of the market. A good example is actually France, where our customers ask for a lot of consignment stock at their warehouses that we have to ship to them. While in the Netherlands, for example, we have Albert Heijn that keeps relatively low stock, and we keep a lot of the stock in our places. So we have to design our warehouses to do that. And you have to sustain that with capacity. So, countries with a high seasonality, you have to take that into account when designing your assets. That might lead to underutilized assets in the winter, but you will have to sustain the season. And beer is a very seasonal product as well. So, it all comes together in the network design.
But as I look at this picture, the figures are blurred. But I can imagine that with this kind of overview, you have a better way of benchmarking compared to other companies, possibly if you have the data, but also internally, what is the operational overall equipment effectiveness, the OEE of your company and your breweries?
Yeah, correct. That's an interesting part to touch. We are indeed able to do that, and always before we invest, we look at, are the assets being fully utilized? Are we sweating them, as we say?
Yeah.
So we look at what could be the benchmark capacity of this asset. Are we yet on that capacity? And how can we achieve that capacity before we expand or before we invest? And we use benchmarks for that. So that's indeed internal benchmarks, but also external ones where we say, this type of packaging line, we know that can do 90% OEE or so. Let's see how we can achieve that, and where is the gap and where should we improve? And then we start with that before putting a lot of capital expenditures in.
Yeah, you mentioned that you want to elaborate more about greenfield applications, and maybe you can explain this project.
Yeah, I think it's nice because it's an example of a project that actually happened. So this is really something that my team makes an impact on. In the news even, where Mexico. You see, we already have 7 breweries in Mexico. It's one of our biggest operating companies. We do the volume of Mexico is almost half of the volume of Europe, and that is it's a massive country for us, and in general also geographically, basically. So where do you need to be with your breweries? Where's the population areas, and where when we are short on capacity is the best place to invest. And we then first test with gravity where that should be. Then we select sites that could potentially be location. We model all the costs, capacities to land the business case on, this is the place to be. This is how we should configure this brewery, and this is the capacities and the capabilities it should have, including the timeline. So we also know then when it should be operational. We do sensitivities on, what if the costs go up or the demand goes down? Is it still a good case? Because it's a lot of money, and we want to make sure that we invest that in the right way. In this case, it's in the south of Mexico. So in a few years, you can expect a brewery in Mérida, close to Yucatan, close to Cancun, basically, where some people might celebrate the holidays. But this is something, real impact in the real world. And that is great to be part of that and working on that.
Okay, to wrap up, you have a lot of optimization going on, and you talk about cost and cash out, and I think, but there are also ambitions of going green. Maybe you can explain how to use this kind of applications to get more sustainability within your company
Yeah,
supply chain.
yeah, that's a good point. We have a strong ambition, and I'm also proud of that. That we want to reach net zero carbon by 2040, and scope 1 and 2 already in 2030. That means that in a strategic horizon, basically all the breweries are net zero carbon. So in optimization, that makes that my production site is basically net zero. The key
Mhm.
question, however, on production side is which sites will be in and which sites will be out.
Okay.
So yeah, we play a pivotal role in determining, will this brewery be part of the future network, and if so, it will be net zero. So that is on the production side. On the transportation side, it's a bit more difficult and a bit more, let's say, nuanced. Of course, we model CO2 impact. It goes hand in hand with costs, luckily,
Yeah.
but we do include it in optimization. Sometimes adding a cost to CO2 emissions, estimating the average emission per truck per kilometer, and then see if we have a robust solution. But luckily, like I said, it goes hand in hand with reducing distance and reducing cost, and that is in the end one of our goals as well. Yeah.
So you mentioned carbon tax, and there are some other dimensions to include. Water is an element. So
Yeah.
how do you use the availability of water for your own
Yeah.
brewery or other ways to determine the location or the flows?
Yeah, good. Yeah, this is we are very well aware of having sites in water stressed areas, and we include it in every decision we take to invest. What is the water situation? Is it responsible to do that there? What is expected in the future? Modeling that in the optimization, not let's say it's difficult to really include that as an objective or a
Okay.
cost. But what we do is modeling, for example, disruptions. That you say, yeah, this site might not be operational because of water shortage, and you can model, okay, what if I take the site out? What is the impact on my network? And we develop contingency plans to cover for such a disruption. So yes, we take it into account in all the decisions, and we use the models to estimate impact of certain disruptions. Yeah.
All right. So we are close to the end of the hour, but again, we have an extra 30 minutes beyond in the virtual lounge. So if there are questions, please do it right now or join us later in the lounge. So maybe a question from my side. Arjen, you mentioned you have your sustainability goals. I can imagine that moving on in time, that the board is more and more interested which breweries will be in or out, and what does that mean for your network? Because then you have to open up some new breweries or whatever. So what do you expect? How the board will look at network design and supply chain in this matter?
No, it means we stay relevant. So in every basically period or whatever, every theme, you see that supply chain network design, strategic planning has a role to play. So that's in the case of expansion, where the board wants to know where should we expand, what is the best place to do so, but also sustainability, like which site should be part of the network, where is it expensive to be, what is impossible to make net zero. It all comes together in network design, and whatever theme pops up, basically, if it's about strategic supply chain questions, then we are involved. Yeah.
I see a lot of questions also in the chat functionality, and some are already answered, especially by Jasper. Jasper, maybe a question to you. Maybe that's the elephant in the room. So, how do you look at AI, machine learning, Gen AI in supply chain planning? What's your take? Are you already applying it? So, what's your view of the use of Gen AI in supply chain planning or otherwise?
I cannot say that we're already applying it, Martijn. I think we are also still investigating. I think there's a lot to do around companies that offer functionality around disruptions and how to react to disruptions. I've also seen some examples more in the scheduling area, so in the sequencing area, right? So how to deal with the actual beer production process. But currently, we don't have use cases running in supply planning. I always say the same thing. I would love that there would be a Gen AI that can help me answer questions about the outcomes of a linear programming model, such as why will I go out of stock in week 14? And then I would love that a Gen AI could answer that. But so far, I have not found an answer to that question yet. Who can manage that?
Okay, so thank you for that honesty. I would say, so mentioning that we are almost out of time, or actually we are out of time right now. So there's more information here. So on the left hand side, you see some links to our IT supplement map with all the vendors, including AIMMS, and more information. We created a checklist about network design tooling. With AIMMS, that's also available, and on the right hand side you see the link to the AIMMS environment with the recent blog about the importance of transparency. Like I said, we will be in the virtual lounge right after this, so you can join us in a minute. And there's more. Here's an app. You can use it right now, but it will also be in the PDF on your mobile phone, and then you find AIMMS with a lot of more information about what they're offering. So finally, thanks to Jasper and Arjen and Kees. Thank you all.
Thanks.
And I thank the audience, the massive audience, and a lot of questions. So I think that we have close to 800 registrants here. So thank you for listening in live or later on. So with this, I would like to close up this webinar. And if you want to join us, either talk about tactical planning or strategic planning, you can join us at the table in the virtual lounge. So maybe I will see you right after this in the lounge, or maybe I see you at another webinar Wednesday. Thanks for now, and thank you. And I would say to you, bye-bye.